Fantasy Football Week 5 waiver wire targets, Fantasy Football waiver wire stream targets as well. Before we get rolling, I do every position, including defense and special teams. If you're interested in a specific position, just click the timestamp below. It'll take you right there. Let's get right into quarterbacks. My favorite ad this week is Sam Darnold at the quarterback position. Why do I like Sam Darnold? First of all, a lot of people just don't like him because he was a New York Jet. The Jets stunk for a while. But Sam Darnold, remember, he's got top 3 pick talent in his draft. He came out. I know Baker Mayfield got drafted ahead of him. A lot of people thought he was the best quarterback coming out of that draft in terms of talent. The New York Jets are an albatross. It's hard for any quarterback to succeed there. Sorry, but Jets fans, you know it's true. Now you get into a system with some talent around him. He's only owned in 18.3% of the leagues out there today. He gets you a lot of rushing touchdowns. He has 5 rushing touchdowns this year. I think he's just scraping the surface of his potential inside this offense. Now, some other quarterbacks I like. Actually, this slide is the same as it was last week with one exception. First of all, let me start with Mac Jones, still only owned in 17.1% of the leagues. That is a travesty. We saw on Sunday Night Football what he did. The New England Patriots, whether you want to say they simplified the offense to give him simpler looks, I think how Chris Collinsworth was saying that during the game. I don't know if that's true, but the New England Patriots were more aggressive down the field, even in a driving rainstorm. Jacoby Myers is good. Nelson Aguilar is good. Bourne is good. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, they're good. I know James White is hurt, but you got Damian Harris backing you up in the backfield. Brandon Bolden, J.J. Taylor, those guys adding some receptions. Look, he's got weapons. The Patriots haven't had weapons in years. They finally invested. They finally got some weapons for this young quarterback. The offensive line is blocking. He's going to get better. I said that last week. I continue to maintain that. Jared Goff is the new addition to this list. I like Jared Goff because, look, the Lions are moving the ball. They're not putting points on the board, but they're moving the ball. Eventually, they'll get into the end zone. They were living in the Chicago Bears red zone last week. The Bears were opportunistic. They forced some turnovers. They forced some stops, so on and so forth. But Goff has more weapons, and he's going to get some more weapons coming back from injury. I like him. He's throwing the ball well. What can I say? He's not my favorite quarterback, but if you're playing in Superflex and he's out there, he shouldn't be, but if he's out there, grab him. If you're desperate at quarterback, you can do it. The best quarterback, I think, on the waiver wire at this point is Kirk Cousins. I like it because he had kind of a slower game last week. He usually is kind of going to ebb and flow. He's got weapons all over the place. Dalvin Cook, of course. You got Thielen. You got Jefferson. Conklin's coming on at the tight end position. He's owned in roughly 2/3 of the league, which means you have about a 33% chance of grabbing him. Derek Carr, this is probably the last week that I'm going to put him on there. He's owned in 75% of the leagues. I actually like Cousins more than Carr, but if he's available, Derek Carr, if he's available, he is worth a shot. Now, my daily fantasy play of the week, believe it or not, is Daniel Jones, the number 5 projected quarterback this week, according to my computer projections. He's going to get touchdowns. He's got Saquon to throw to in the backfield. I know his wide receivers are banged up. That's why his budget is going to be low. Remember, it's kind of, you're looking for the daily fantasy sleepers. Last week, I had Taylor Heineke on this slide, and he got you a lot of touchdowns against Atlanta. Daniel Jones, I guess there's something to be liked about that. My computer projections are certainly saying so. At the running back position, best pickup of the week, Latavius Murray. If you didn't notice, he just won the running back job in Baltimore. He's not getting you a lot of receptions, of course. He doesn't do that. I think that's what Baltimore is going to be looking for Le'Veon Bell to do, as he is also activated. You can get a starting running back today, owned in 11.9% of the leagues. If he's available, he should be your top waiver wire claim of the week, in my opinion. Other running backs I like, again, the last week I'm going to have him here, Cordero Patterson, 73.9%. There's still a quarter of the leagues out there where this guy is owned. That's not going to be the case after his 3-touchdown performance. He was on my screen, my suggestions last week. Those of you who picked him up and inserted him in your lineup, you're welcome. But there you go, Cordero Patterson. What I like about him in this offense is that Mike Davis gets the carries, but if Atlanta is down, they just use Cordero Patterson more. It's hard for me to say that. It's a mouthful. Cordero Patterson. It's like speech therapy or something like that. Michael Carter, still only owned in 57.1% of the leagues. He got into the end zone for the first time last week. He is going to continue to improve. Remember, the Jets started against some pretty tough defenses. I think that schedule will even out, and I think Carter will get better and better. Brandon Bolden, I had last week. I had Bolden or Taylor. I actually liked Taylor more. I was wrong. It's Brandon Bolden. He's the guy getting the target, so he's the guy I would suggest to pick up. He's only owned in 1.5% of the leagues out there. And yes, I still have Mark Ingram on the screen here as a recommendation. While Davis Mills is playing quarterback for the Houston Texans, it's going to be tough sledding for all the running backs. But Houston wants to run the ball similar to how Baltimore wants to run the ball. They want Mark Ingram to be the thumper. They want him to be the first and second down guy. They're going to give him a lot of chances on the goal line. The problem is they're not getting to the goal line that much until Tyrod Taylor is back. He will be back at some point, so you may as well just pick up Ingram and stash him on your roster if you were starved for running backs. Now, daily fantasy, my favorite play of the week, the number 8 projected running back is James Conner in Arizona. I struggle with this one. I wouldn't pick him up on my fantasy roster yet. He's had 2 games in a row with 2 touchdowns. What's happening is Arizona, they'll use Chase Edmonds. They'll get into the, inside the 5, and the Arizona Cardinals will run it in with James Conner. Drives me crazy. So Chase Edmonds, basically, he has to run for a 20-yard touchdown. Otherwise, he's not going to get in the end zone. Edmonds is always going to be the guy to get you the catches and get you the bulk yardage, but James Conner's getting the touchdowns. So if you're in a touchdown-only league, a standard league, he's good. Daily fantasy, if you're looking for a running back, James Conner is it for me this week. Wide receivers. I have Rondale Moore, still my favorite wide receiver. Depending on what he does this coming week, I might remove him and put him on the next slide where it's just kind of a set of the other guys. But again, Arizona, they're giving him carries, they're giving him targets. That's what I'm looking for. Eventually, in that offense, the touchdowns will come. Touchdown. I think Max Williams got a touchdown last week. They're just touchdowns with Kyler Murray. They're going to be out there, right? It's like. It's like roulette. Eventually, your number is going to come up. Rondale Moore is getting targets. You like him in this offense. I like him in this offense. He's only owned in roughly half of the leagues out there. Other wide receivers I think you should grab. Tim Patrick, only owned in 35.4% of the leagues. I don't know why that is. I mean, I know when Judy comes back off of the IR that he's on right now, his numbers are going to dissipate. But if you need wide receiver help, he's getting you a lot of yards, a lot of targets. Bridgewater, when he's not concussed, will get him the ball. Drew Lock, if he's a starting quarterback, I'm not as happy about him. Josh Gordon, I think I called him Josh Brown last week as somebody commented. Thank you for that. Josh Gordon. He should make his Chiefs debut this week. He's still only owned in 18.9% of the leagues. He's a boom or bust guy. I think the Chiefs need somebody to help complement Tyreek Hill, although Tyreek Hill got 3 touchdowns last week. You can see when defenses, when they want to triple cover Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce explodes. Last week, the Eagles did not do that, and Tyreek Hill gets into the end zone 3 times. That's kind of a normal cycle for the Chiefs and for Tyreek Hill. But when you add a dynamic receiver, and yes, I do think Gordon, when he plays, is still better than Sammy Watkins was. It's just going to add a little bit more complexity and a more challenge for the defensive coordinators, the opposing defensive coordinators to cover, and I think he'll have ample opportunity while defenses are trying to bottle up Kelce and Hill. I think Gordon's going to be scoring pretty well. Let's just hope for his sake and for all NFL fans' sakes that Gordon can actually stay on the field. Jamison Crowder, I mentioned him last week. His roster percentage is creeping up. He's rostered in 14.4% of leagues. Hey, by the way, he got into the end zone last week. He's going to get targets. Again, I said this with Michael Carter. The Jets offense has more juice than you think it does. They just had a really tough start, a rookie quarterback, a new offensive coordinator. They're starting to get their footing. If you watch the games, and I do watch the Jets games, because I try to study up on all the teams. Jamison Crowder, he's going to score well in this offense, especially in PPR leagues. And lastly, we got Tony. Giants fans, football fans, let me know. I think it's Tony, but I could be completely wrong. But anyway, New York Jets, he got some banged up receivers, Slayton Shepard out. He got a lot of target share. So he could be a guy that continues to kind of creep along for the New York Giants. I mentioned that I had a nice projection on Daniel Jones this week. So somebody's got to catch the passes. My favorite wide receiver daily fantasy play this week is actually, yes, Jamison Crowder. So nice, I listed him twice. Number 18 wide receiver projection this week. It's kind of, in terms of computer projections this week for me at the wide receiver position, a standard week. So I think, most of the normal guys like, DeAndre Hopkins and Cooper Kupp, those guys are going to score well. What does that mean? That means those are higher budget guys. So, you're going to be looking for maybe some of the lower budget guys like a Jamison Crowder, number 18 wide receiver this week. I think that gives you good value. Tight ends, I have Conklin for the Minnesota Vikings listed as my number 1 tight end this week. He's owned in 23.4% of the leagues out there. The Minnesota Vikings didn't really get into the end zone that much, but Conklin had targets. Not a lot of yards, but a lot of targets. So that's the second week in a row this has happened. Now, 2 weeks ago, I think he got in the end zone or he had a bigger game. I remember he having a lot more points at his position. However, last week he kind of took a step back. So people aren't really taking the notice that they should. I like him because how he is being utilized in the offense. Other tight ends that I like, Dalton Schultz, I think at this point needs to be rostered in all the leagues. He's only rostered in 35.4%. He's getting a lot of touchdowns. Look, teams are trying to shut down Cooper and trying to shut down Lamb, and that's leaving the middle of the field wide open. Even Jarwin got into the end zone last week. Schultz is the guy. He's getting the targets. He's getting the yardage, and he has really nice chemistry with Dak Prescott, so he should be rostered everywhere. Evan Ingram, I mentioned, again, I think his targets ticked up last week against the New Orleans Saints. I think he's going to continue to get better. I have him rostered actually as well as Pat Freiermuth, who's only in 5.2% of the leagues. I just think Freiermuth is going to pop at some point. Maybe I'm foolish, but there you go. And then while Gronkowski is out, I don't think he's going to play this week. Cameron Brate is the guy in Tampa Bay that's getting the targets and the yardage. Yes, O.J. Howard is there, but Cameron Brate, I think, is your guy. If you're looking for a little plug-and-play, if you're dealing with some injuries, heck, if you had Gronk and Gronk is out of the lineup, you can play Cameron Brate. My favorite daily fantasy tight end of the week is Jonnu Smith, the number 4 tight end projected this week. I mentioned Mac Jones. I like the 2 tight end formation. I have Jonnu Smith having a really, really nice game this week. So there you go, New England Patriots. A nice, somewhat budget. He's not like a complete sleeper, daily fantasy sleeper, but he'll be somewhat of a budget tight end for you. Defense and special teams. The matchups I like this week, the Arizona Cardinals versus the San Francisco 49ers. Cardinals owned in 37.2% of the leagues. In my league formats, they're the number 1 defense. The number 1 defense should not only be owned in 1/3 of the leagues, a little bit more than. I have the Indianapolis Colts versus the Baltimore Ravens. Look, the Ravens, they're a ground-to-pound team. The Colts, that matches up very well. The Colts can do well stopping the run. They can also generate turnovers. So, if this game gets to the point where Lamar Jackson's trying to throw the ball downfield, Indianapolis is opportunistic. They're owned in 42.1% of the leagues. And then I also have the New England Patriots, the best daily fantasy play and the best, honestly, stream defense pickup you can get. The New England Patriots versus the Houston Texans while Davis Mills is playing quarterback. I don't think the Texans are going to score, honestly. 60.1% owned, so that means you have a 40% shot of picking up and playing the New England Patriots this week. There you go. There is my waiver segment. Comment below. Let me know if I missed anybody. I feel like there's one or two. I was sleeping last night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I'm thinking, I need to add him to my waiver list, and I completely forgot who it was, obviously. It came to me in a dream, and I lost it. So comment below, who was that person I was dreaming about that I forgot to add into this waiver wire segment? Of course, we will be back later in the week with some game previews, maybe some more computer projections for fantasy football. We'll do all that stuff, wrapping it up in a nice little bow. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you next time.